We've got a make-or-break game this upcoming weekend between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the LSU Tigers down in Baton Rouge. The loser is out of the playoff contention and out of the SEC championship hunt, but the winner has their whole season in front of them. Let's hop in and discuss it.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They had to win this game.
There's a problem. This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my gut's telling me.
I genuinely could not believe it.
You don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and usually Chase Haney's joining us tonight, but we gave him a little bit of time off because he was pulling double duty doing two podcasts. So I got my main man, Graham Haney, here, and we're going to preview the Alabama LSU game in what is probably a de facto elimination game this upcoming Saturday. But before we dive into that, quick program reminder, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and subscribe to the Pigskin Cafe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter for clips, reels, and upcoming show information. We appreciate you very much, and be sure to leave a comment. We love interacting with you guys throughout the college football season, and we can't wait to see how it all shakes out because A&M, top of the SEC, now they lost a big one to South Carolina, and it threw a wrench into everything, so now it's even more crowded at the top of the league. And speaking of that, let's dive in to the Alabama LSU game that is coming up this weekend. This is one of the better rivalry games of the past 10 to 15 years. It really started when Nick Saban went from LSU to Alabama. Alabama has honestly dominated this matchup during that run. But this weekend, it feels a little different. Alabama's coming in 6-2, LSU 6-2. They're both going to be coming off byes. Graham, I'll start with you, man. Let's start when Alabama has the ball. What do you think their best plan of attack is against this LSU defense that has been kind of an up and down unit, especially early in the year? They struggled mightily, but Blake Baker, after their first bye week, has progressively gotten them to play better and better and better until they played Texas A&M before their bye week and were absolutely abysmal in the second half. How do you think Alabama can attack this LSU front?
Yeah, I think they have to continue the momentum they built against Missouri. And going into a bye week, knowing that there's going to be new shakeups, new formations, new schemes, not necessarily a new scheme, but kind of things wrinkles that LSU's not seen before, having a week and a half added to the bye week, and LSU will be able to do the same thing. So maybe those will cancel out, but we're going to talk about what we've talked about all year. It's going to start with Alabama running the football. It's going to start with, and it's going to continue with Jalen Milroe not turning the ball over. If Alabama can do those two things, they can control the game, and they can take down this LSU team. And I'm going to talk about I'll talk about their team a little bit more later. But I think at the end of the day, Alabama has to control the offensive side of the ball. LSU has a dynamic passing attack. Their rushing attack, not very good. So Alabama, with that, has to get ahead and will need to control the game. Because if LSU gets ahead and is able to maintain control, then Alabama is going to be in trouble because LSU is going to be able to air it out and could run the score up. But I think for Alabama on the offensive side of the ball, would love to see Justice Haynes and Jam Miller continue on their good efforts they had against Missouri, specifically Justice Haynes, and continue to build off that. I think that a week off, we're rested, we'll be healthier going into this one than we have been the past few weeks. But LSU coming off a tough loss in College Station leaves a sour taste in their mouth. So we know that their practice was probably good this week, and they know that Hampton, like you said, it's make or break for both of these teams. So just to keep it short and sweet, I think Alabama has to run the football, and Milroe has to make sure that he doesn't turn the ball over. If he does both those things, Alabama should win. I think that's probably the discussion that'll be had. If Jalen Milroe doesn't turn over and able to run the ball, Alabama will win the football game.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that premise, Graham. I definitely do. I think what's going to be interesting, Alabama does need to make a concerted effort to run the ball, to be very physical up front. But LSU is going to know that coming into the game, that that's going to be a focal point for Alabama. So I think they're going to do their best to take that away. Now, they have shown this year versus Texas A&M versus South Carolina that they're susceptible to the run at times, especially the quarterback run. So being able to exploit that if you're Alabama is going to be of the utmost importance. I definitely think a guy like Marcel Reed is probably a better, more instinctual runner than Jalen Milroe, especially when it comes to making the correct reads in the read option game and all that comes with that. But I think that's going to have to be the primary focus. I think Alabama's going to definitely have to not turn the ball over. They're going to have to stay in third and manageable, which has been an issue all year long. And that's what I think I'm most worried about if I'm an Alabama fan. Look at how when Alabama, they maybe run it on first down and they get a yard or two, then you're in second and long. Then you might have another negative player. You might only pick up another yard or two. Then it's 3rd and 7. Honestly, and I know this is harsh, Alabama should almost have the punt team halfway on the field by that point. They've been that bad on 3rd and long this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with how defenses have attacked Jalen Milroe, which we've said on this pod repeatedly. They blitz them. They're very aggressive with their pressure. They change their coverage and shift coverage from pre to post snap, and it gives him a lot of issues. And he's got to be more willing to run and be instinctual when a play breaks down. I think that is something that has been lacking, other than maybe a half versus Georgia. I thought, in the Georgia game, in the first half especially, he made some plays when they would send pressure. He would make them pay for it, whether it would be getting the ball out quick or making a guy miss and escaping the pocket and getting a lot of yards that way. But he's been more reluctant to do so in the past 3 or 4 weeks. And I just know that Blake Baker and that LSU defense, while they're not elite by any stretch of the imagination, they're a very aggressive unit. And I think they're going to cause a lot of issues for him. And so in an ideal world, I would like to say Alabama could, play ball control. They could run the ball and kind of handle LSU up front. But I've only seen them do that really one game this year. And not even one game, really one half against Missouri. And again, we talked about the extenuating circumstances of that game with their defense being on the field the whole first half and just eventually breaking. I didn't think it was from the jump. Alabama just dominated them. So I would be worried about that if I'm Alabama. You have to stay out of 3rd and longs. You have to be able to lean on that running game and selectively take shots downfield. I think that's something that's really been lacking the past 2 or 3 weeks. Other than the Vanderbilt game, Alabama hasn't had an explosive pass play that has gone for a touchdown. Because, again, teams are kind of taking that away because they know Alabama is so dependent upon it. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, how those matchups, how that game of chess goes. And another thing to keep in mind, and then I'll kick it to you for how the Alabama defense can match up and handle this potent LSU passing attack. Alabama, when they went on the road to Neyland, did not handle the crowd noise well at all. They looked rattled from the jump, especially Jalen Milroe. LSU's going to be the same level of crazy, if not more so, because it's going to be at night. How do you handle the operation? How do you handle communication in that raucous environment? I think that's going to play a key factor in this game. So, Graham, if you have anything else to add on the offense, Alabama offense versus the defense of LSU, feel free. But I want to transition to how you think the Alabama defense, who's been playing better as of late, especially past 3 games, have continued to build and stack performances. How do you think they can slow down this LSU passing attack that has been really, really, really good this year?
Yeah, I think that just to kind of add to what I said about the offense, I mean, their offense, LSU's offense is, I mean, they throw the ball and they're very good at it. They've shown that is their bread and butter. Probably not that's what they would want to be, but that's what they're good at right now, and that's what they have shown all season. I think that goes back to Alabama being able to control the ball on offense. If you can control offense, take time off the clock, put together long drives, that's going to put pressure on LSU to feel like they have to take advantage of it. It also might force them to try and go out of that identity, knowing that that when you throw the ball, you realistically have your offense on the field less and your defense on the field more, because just throwing the ball downfield takes less time to score. So I think that for LSU, they might have to change some of their identity if Alabama's able to keep time possession, control the clock, run the ball. And now flipping to Alabama's defense, I think that this is where we first see Kane Womack's 4-2-5 scheme probably at its biggest test. This scheme, 4-2-5, 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs, is meant to be a bend, not break system. It is meant to help against teams that spread the ball, spread receivers out, spread the offense out, and like to take shots and be aggressive in the air. I think that's where we really see what Kane Womack's defense is made of, because we've seen that Alabama has bright spots and low spots for our DBs, really young at corner, inexperienced, but very talented. Don't get me wrong. So I think for the defense is going to determine, I think, and what it has all season is based off linebacker play. Jahai Campbell, if our linebackers are able to have a good game, make the right reads, able to really, stop the run and force LSU to throw, then that's going to, allow Kane Womack to drop more guys in coverage, to bring a safety into the box, and is really able to help some of those young corners in some of these, tough plays in a tough environment. I think that what will be interesting for me that I'm going to be looking for is going to be the new coach comm system, the earphone, the speaker in the captain's helmet on defense, is going to them able to put in the play, and Alabama able to make adjustments with it being such a loud crowd and the all of the formation, all of the play coming through the earpiece. I think that'll be interesting to watch. And who knows, maybe that's a benefit to Alabama, or it could be a benefit to LSU based off how the crowd is. We know that Baton Rouge on Saturday night is a crazy, crazy environment, arguably probably the toughest place to play at night. Lane Kiffin mentioned it, I guess it was in his press conference last week, that LSU playing another night game, and I don't think Ole Miss has had one all season.
They hadn't.
Yeah, and so yes, it's for TV purposes, but it's also you're kind of giving the benefit to LSU, knowing that their crowd is loudest at night. When it's dark and the lights are on, that's when their fans are the loudest. And who knows, maybe you could kind of tie it into having all day to get hydrated and refreshed and get spend some tailgating. Maybe that makes a difference too. But it's just interesting that LSU, whenever Alabama and LSU play, as of recent, it's always that night game, which definitely benefits LSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if they're getting hydrated, Graham. I think they're getting the opposite of hydrated, but I get your point.
I was trying to not make assumptions based on what they were, but they were definitely drinking and throwing back lots of adult liquids for sure.
For sure. Well, I'll make this short and sweet, and then I'll kind of get into my pick, get yours, and then we can briefly touch on Ole Miss Georgia, the other huge matchup of the weekend. Actually, another sneaky good matchup. Colorado plays Iowa State this weekend. Iowa State coming off a loss. Colorado wins, man. They're inching closer and closer to that Big 12 championship, which is just an incredible job by Deion. And for those who are saying, for certain coaches in the other part of the state of Alabama, that you got to give him time to get his guys in, look at Deion, who inherited a worse mess than the other coach in the state of Alabama and what he's doing in year 2 as compared to him. But I digress. I agree with all the points that you made. I will add this. I think this offense, this quarterback, and this group of receivers that has Kyron Lacy, Aaron Anderson, who's an Alabama transfer, very explosive, Xavion Thomas, and C.J. Daniels. And you got to add Mason Taylor into that too as the tight end.
I forgot him, yeah.
Yeah, it's the best skill group Alabama's played this year, and I really don't think it's close. Against a defense who I would say their weakness is the secondary, I don't think that favors Alabama. And Alabama has really had difficulty this year generating pass rush organically with four guys without sending blitzes. And I think this week you're going to have a lot of simulated pressure, walk guys up, drop some, send guys from places you don't expect to try to rattle and confuse Nussmeier, who has shown in games if he's pressured, he's susceptible to throwing off that back foot, and you can force him into mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to do that this upcoming weekend. But Texas A&M had a lot of success because they have a defensive line who's really, really, really good. They've got a guy like Skirton. They've got Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart. Alabama, as good as their D-line I think it's a really good defensive line. They don't have anybody up to that caliber of player. And that worries me. If I'm an Alabama fan, I'm worried about that matchup on that young secondary and those receivers consistently getting wins because they've done it all year against the best competition. I think your point about ball control is a good one. I think Alabama, ideally, if they could do that, if they could run the ball, control the clock, keep that offense off the field, that would be great. It's hard for me to see that being a reality when that has not been – Alabama has not shown any semblance of that, of a ball control type team all year. They've been, we'll score quickly or we're going to go 3 and out or have a very short and inefficient drive. That worries me. And combined with the worries and limitations I think the Alabama offense has, combined with the weakness of the Alabama secondary, that LSU, that's their strength, is throwing the ball. And they're not a great running team, but Caden Durham has provided a spark to them in the running game where they can at least get a few yards to keep defenses honest at times. It pains me to do it, but I picked Tennessee to beat Alabama, and I'm picking LSU to beat Alabama. I think if this game were in Tuscaloosa, I'd probably lean Alabama. But with it being in Death Valley and how Alabama performed in Neyland, I just don't think they get this victory. I think they're going to end up 9-3 on the year. I think it's going to be, you look back at the Vanderbilt game and be like, what if? What if we didn't lose that one? And I know the Tennessee one, same thing. I mean, you ultimately, I think, kind of gave that one away too. But the Vanderbilt one was the one you had to win. Because if you're 10-2 with a loss to Tennessee and a loss to LSU away, I think you probably can still get in the playoff. But ultimately, as much as it pains me, I just think LSU's a bad matchup for Alabama in a few key areas. The only thing that I will say that gives Alabama fans should give them a little bit of solace, LSU has not been tested the way Alabama has. And I say that because Alabama's really played a very difficult schedule. If you look at Georgia, if you look at Vanderbilt, who right now they're a 6-3 team, and they've shown to be a really, really tough, gritty football team. South Carolina, you saw what they did. You've seen Tennessee's only lost one game, and then LSU, they've been tested a little bit more than LSU has. Maybe that in this game, that provides something valuable for them. It provides them an opportunity that they've been through adversity and they can fight through it. I just don't think they get it done. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Jalen Milroe comes out and has a fantastic game and makes the LSU defense pay, especially with his legs. I just don't see it happening on Saturday night. Graham, what do you make of all that? Give me your pick, and we'll move on really quickly, and then we'll get on up out of here.
Yeah, I want to harp on the point that you said that LSU has not been truly tested this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, they played some tough opponents like Ole Miss, like Texas A&M, like
South Carolina.
but LSU this whole season has yet to have like a convincing win against a formidable opponent. Yes, I mean they lose to USC week 1, beat South Carolina by 3, beat Ole Miss by 3, beat Arkansas by 24. But after what Ole Miss did to them, we can tell that that's probably taking it easy. My issue with LSU is that they play everyone at least mostly close. It's going to be no shoot. It's going to be a shootout. It's not going to be a blowout one way or another because LSU is good enough to stay with anybody. But I don't know if they're good enough to put the nail in the coffin when they have to. And coming home after a bye week, I think that when you look at LSU and you look at Alabama coming off, LSU coming off a tough loss in College Station, Alabama building some momentum going forward, I think I have to pick Alabama. And I don't think that it's going to be because I really believe in Alabama, but it's that when the back has been against the wall, against Georgia, Alabama pulled it out. Against Tennessee, Alabama failed. Against Vanderbilt, Alabama failed. I think when we look this week and we see when Alabama's back is against the wall, I think they're going to respond well, and I think they're going to win this one. I think Alabama's favored by 2.5, so by a field goal. I'm going to do, and I don't know why I'm doing this, but I got to go with my gut and always have to. I think Alabama at least wins by 6.
All right. Well, Graham, I love your conviction. I love your confidence, and I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong.
Yep.
Just like I said when played Tennessee, that I hoped that I would be wrong and I could eat crow on this podcast. I got to see it. I got to see it in that environment, and I've got to see Jalen Milroe neutralize a defense that is going to do the things that give him trouble and have consistently for 2 or 3 years now. So, going to be fun to talk about, going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait to recap it with you and Chase next week. But there's another big matchup in the SEC this upcoming weekend, and it's Georgia Ole Miss. And we're not going to belabor the point. We're not going to give you a deep dive. I just want to get a few brief overall thoughts out. And I'll do mine, and then Graham, you do yours. You can kick it back to me, and we'll finish the show. I think Ole Miss has somewhat become underrated a little bit due to the fact that they have 2 losses. The Kentucky loss is inexcusable at this point. Kentucky is 3-6, I believe, at this point, 3-5. They're not a great football team. There's no reason that they should have lost that game. And I may be wrong. I think Trey Harris played that game, but he's been up and down and been injured all year long. And when he doesn't play or when he's injured, they're not the same team. But their defense has been really, really good this year. They're, I think, the top scoring defense in the SEC, or they were before their game against Arkansas. I think they're going to give Georgia a fight. Give Georgia a fight. I really do. Because Georgia is not playing their best ball either. Carson Beck has 11 picks in his last 5 games. He's not seeing the field well. I don't think he's played particularly great this year, and you really see how much they miss and how much they depended on Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers last year, which, again, no fault of their own. They're 2 great players. You would depend on them if you were any team. But I think the issue in this game for Ole Miss, if they didn't have this issue, I'd probably pick them to win. And I won't be surprised if they do win, because I do think, especially their offense, if they can turn Carson Beck over and take advantage of those turnovers, kind of like Alabama did, you could have a similar type result. But their offensive line is just not great. And Georgia is going to be able to dominate that offensive line like they did last year when they played in Athens. That's ultimately why they lost that game. They gave up, that O-line gave up 6 sacks to LSU. I think Georgia, with a guy like Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams off the edge, are going to be able to generate pressure on Jackson Dart. And I ultimately think they're going to win. I think Georgia is going to eke out a victory, and then they play Tennessee at home the next week. But if Lane Kiffin can work around that offensive line, call plays around their deficiencies and kind of mask them, I think Ole Miss definitely has a shot to win this game because I think their defense, even on the D line, is good enough to keep them in it. I'm just worried about that O line being exploited and their offense not being able to generate enough points to realistically win this game. But what's your take on that, Graham? And then we'll get on up out of here, man.
Yeah, you're spot on. The stats say that Ole Miss is the third best scoring defense in the SEC behind Texas and Tennessee. Give a little over 13 points a game. Man, I think you're spot on, and I think that when you look at the way that Georgia's played this season, Carson Beck is turnover prone. He throws picks, and he does not just throw one a game. He'll get into those
multiple.
He'll throw multiple and a half, and then he'll turn on. But I think when you look at Georgia's season, you look at their game against Alabama, their game against Texas, their game against Florida. Carson Beck turns the ball over in every single one. What happens? Alabama's able to put the ball in the end zone. Alabama's able to score and execute on those turnovers, and they pay off for Alabama. When you look at Texas, you look at Florida, they're not able to cash in when Carson Beck turns the ball over. That's going to be the story of the game. If Ole Miss is able to, first off, actually get some interceptions and get some turnovers from Carson Beck, which realistically probably happens because he does make some very boneheaded decisions and just kind of throws it when there's not really anything there. If Ole Miss can capitalize off those turnovers, they can win. They truly can, but I don't know if they will. I've got Georgia. I think it's going to be a close one, and Georgia's played lots of close games this year, and I think them going on the road this week is no different. I think that defensive line, like you talked about, is going to be the difference in this one. Jackson Dart has looked better as of late, but still not playing to probably the level that people expect of him, being a returning starter for Lane Kiffin. And you wish it could come down to a quarterback matchup of Dart versus Beck, but I don't think it does. I think it comes down to, like you said, Georgia's defensive line and then their ability to generate pressure. And Jackson Dart, when he's pressured continually, often makes mistakes. So I'm going to go Georgia. I'm going to go Georgia in a close one, but I think that in the same way that, Florida could have taken advantage of it. DJ Lagway gets hurt against Georgia, but I think that Georgia ekes this one out. But Hampton, I'm just like you. I would not be surprised if Ole Miss is able to win this one at home because Georgia is battling really tough opponents back to back to back and going on the road again. I think it does make a difference. So close one, but I'll take Georgia. I think they're just too explosive.
Yeah, one last point on Jackson Dart. I think that's a great point by you that when he's pressured, which, again, like any quarterback, most of the time when a quarterback's pressured, they're more prone to mistakes. But you saw kind of when LSU, who I think Georgia has a better defensive line than LSU does, and better edge talent, they were able to limit. Ole Miss got a lot of yards in that game, but when it came down to the red area, they weren't able to convert. And Dart has been up and down this year at times. Now, when he's been good, he's been really, really good. Like when they played Arkansas, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. Oklahoma, he played okay. South Carolina, he played okay. He's been a little bit up and down for sure. But I just think that Georgia, that offensive line for Ole Miss is the biggest advantage that Georgia has going in this game, and I just think it's a critical one. So, going to be fun because we get that one, and then we get Alabama LSU right after that.
Yep.
And you can bet your bottom dollar we'll be watching it, and we will be reacting to it next week on the Pigskin Cafe. Thank you, everybody, if you made it this far for listening. We appreciate it very, very much. We hope you subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media, and we will be back next week to recap Alabama LSU in the de facto elimination game for the playoff. But the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next time, chew on that. We'll see you guys next week.